DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. So I just wanted to know, have you received your draft notice yet?
No, I won't go. If you ask me that question, that's like asking Amy Winehouse, did she want to go to rehab? I say no.
NightWatchman, my man. Okay, so
but this thing might be over. Now that this whole Strait of Hormuz thing has kind of blown up in Orange's face, I don't know. At some point in time, he's going to have to, let 20% of the world's oil, free. So we'll see. We'll see.
But he has not necessarily yet admitted that this has been a mistake, huh?
Oh, he was waiting for the support of our allies, except he forgot that we don't have any left. He pretty much alienated everybody and trying to invite them back to the party. It's like
NightWatchman, you cannot make this up. You cannot. So
it's like, no, they're not coming to the cookout.
Well, certainly, NightWatchman. One of the things that we certainly do, besides attacking Iran, one of the other things that he really attacked early on, and I think also in his first term, was DEI.
Yeah, he doubled down on the second go round. Ridiculous.
Totally. So you know what? Why don't we bring back first someone who we've had before, a veteran of Soul Lounge Primetime. That can only be Vernée Butterfield. Bring her. Yes.
Morning, everybody.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Vernée, we're going to put you to work because you're a veteran. You're no longer just first-time guest or whatever.
That's right.
You've actually brought a couple of colleagues in the space. Could you bring them out?
Yes.
Who you got cooking?
So, Dr. Tony Hudson runs Racially Conscious Collaboration Tool. I trained under him a few years back. That's taught me a protocol that I'm trained in. So I'm really happy that he decided to join us and do this podcast.
And I love it because, Vernée, I know you. You're my cousin. I love you. However, yes. I know when someone is not doing right, you're going to give them smoke and they will not be invited back to a cookout.
That's right. Dr.
Hudson, you passed the grade, man. Welcome. Very nice. Who else you got going on?
Yes, so I also invited Dr. Tracey Benson. I trained under Dr. Benson at the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts in an Ed Leadership Certification program many years ago.
Oh my God!
I've known him for quite some time. Yes.
Well, in a minute.
Yes. Now, Vernée, that college that you just mentioned, it rings clear. Don't we have a cousin who also went there?
Yes, I think so. So I think that was Debbie who introduced me to that program. And then Dr. Benson was there that year teaching, and the rest was history, as we say.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome you all. We have, as you say, I guess, a sensitive topic, okay?
Yes.
And my question might just start out, and I may start out with you, but why do we even need DEI? Please, can you start off, Dr. Butterfield?
Sure.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us, Tony?
If you can, I think I've been muted.
No,
we hear you fine.
We hear you.
We hear you.
Yes. So, Dr. Butterfield, start us off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a fully loaded question, right?
Yes.
The issues don't go away if we don't talk about them. Right? So even if it is in an executive order, if the work is banned in certain spaces, there are still people experiencing discrimination. There are still people experiencing racism, prejudice, so forth. We see this at the national level, at the international level, at the school level. right? At the political level, right? So again, none of these things go away if we simply do not talk about them. And so in my mind, we need DEI more than ever, right? When we are thinking about the people we've been placing into political positions, and the lowering of the bar to allow ever really about DEI as much as it is just putting in your cronies who you wish to be in the role, right? Because if that's the case, then we're all overqualified.
Ooh, okay.
If it's about putting people in and ignoring mediocrity.
Gotcha. Well, you know what, Dr. Hudson. Okay, same to you, but more importantly, I want to also say that how do you define DEI in 2026? Give me the current state and your ideas behind it.
So I think Dr. Hudson's going to log out and come back in. He's having some trouble hearing us. Yeah.
Gotcha. No worries. Okay, then you know what? I'm going to you, Dr. Benson. Do tell.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question. Like what we do in terms of our work, we do anti-racism work. So I believe that's the goal of what we need to do, because historically racism has been at the root of all oppression of people of color in the United States. DEI is an iteration of what's acceptable to white folks. It's what we were allowed to say for maybe a decade, before DEI came around. And now when we think about what it serves in terms of a purpose, that the reason it was so easy to get rid of is because white folks kept it over here, right? We're doing DEI. This is our regular work we do in our schools and in our universities and in our organizations. But DEI, we hire a DEI director. We have a DEI office. It's not what we normally do. And so when it came to the point to get rid of it, they never embedded it in policy. They never embedded it in practices. They never embedded it where it needed to be in terms of the regular system. So when it was hung out here, it was easy to get rid of. And so I believe that there needs to be a rebirth of what this looks like under the umbrella of anti-racism, which focuses in on more systemic changes internally instead of having it hanging out as something else we do.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Dr. Hudson, welcome back. So,
thank you.
So your definitions of DEI in the current state, 2026, and your thoughts. And also, you know what? I'm curious, what drew you to this work?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. Glad to be in. What drew me to the work is, ever since I was a little kid, I was just really obsessed with why things were different racially, and I didn't have the language of racial disparities at the time. So I was a little kid in church on the edge of getting pinched because I didn't understand why the fella on the wall in front of us was white and all of us was black. And so I've always been the one to ask those kind of questions. I gave back my football scholarship in the middle of Iowa playing football because they had a racist Indian chief on the side of the helmet. So I learned very early on what it means to question race and how folks handle those questions. So this is a calling for me. That's why I'm in it. Your question around defining DEI in 2026, troublesome. Not just DEI in itself, but for those of us who've been in this work for a while, it maybe took some of us 30 years to get people to say race. And so historically, folks have used quote unquote DEI language to not have to name race, racism, anti-blackness, whiteness, etc. So to find ourselves in 2026 forced into this shared meaning that we're supposed to defend DEI, it's like fighting for ground that was already won, right? No one's really talking about multiculturalism anymore, and DEI is in that vein. It's very corporate. But that being said, I'm not throwing it under the bus. Just for me in 2026, it's you can try to cancel DEI, but what are you going to do with all that racism? And so that's just what comes up for me about DEI in 2026.
Oh, wow. Very, very well. NightWatchman, I see you itching. You got something, NightWatchman?
No, I'm just listening to what they're saying and just kind of thinking back on how the language has changed. It was affirmative action and it's DEI. And what's been happening, I guess, in recent years is that they take a term and weaponize it, just like they did with critical race theory. They didn't even know what it was, but they weaponized it. And you had a whole army of MAGA folks saying I hate critical race theory. Well, what is it? I don't know what it is, but I hate it. So I think we have to figure out the strategies of how we combat the weaponizing of whatever it is we call it, and just call it out, because what I see is, and Curtis, I have a picture of you with a T-shirt that says "Eracism," and that's what we've been seeing is, the form of racism is to erase our history, erase our culture. And they, the practical, they erased 300,000 Black women from federal jobs in kind of a blink of an eye, really. So, these are serious things that are going on.
Absolutely. And NightWatchman, it kind of reminds me of course, Woodrow Wilson, in his time, with removing all the Black federal workers. And so, cuz I've known you a long time, and so I do remember some of the stories about you starting to do the work at an institution and then suddenly realizing that the institution was not necessarily committed. Is that always do tell?
I mean, I think there's many institutions like that, right? Who in theory, it sounds good and it feels good to be committed, but when you're truly entrenched in this work and what it means to become self-introspective, to acknowledge level of accountability, right? The list goes on and on. Most people end up running in the other direction, right? And when you work in this space, I certainly don't want this to be the place where I bash some of the places where I've been, but a lot of times when Black women are in these spaces, when we want to do real work, we are chased out. We are labeled as the problem. We are labeled as the issue. But it just reiterates, to your point, their lack of commitment and understanding what this real work looks like, right? And where you can get to on the other end. And it doesn't feel good. It shouldn't feel warm and fuzzy. It shouldn't make you peak out to the point where you don't wish to have the conversation, but it certainly shouldn't feel like, I don't feel like there's any level of responsibility that I have in this, right? And if it feels like that, then you're not really doing the work.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, you know what, Dr. Benson, are you concerned about making white people uncomfortable, man? This work, it makes them uncomfortable. Are you concerned?
That's a part of the work. We have to understand the history of this country. Black folks make white folks uncomfortable just in our being. That there was never an intention from our history for us to be a free and liberated and independent people. You see that throughout our history. And so when folks get involved in DEI efforts, no matter how well they're meaning, when you get to the close, personal, immediate, in terms of what it means for them, and I have three pillars of like what in terms of my work and the white folks that I come in contact with, who are the most well-meaning, liberal, leftist folks who are committed to DEI, when it comes down to the close, personal, immediate, they have questions, right? So the first question is, when we're talking about, are you willing to truly integrate where you live, your house, in your white neighborhood? Do you want a Black neighbor across the street? Do you want them next door, right? It's like, the question is like, how many you talk about, right? Is it the right kind of brown folks, right? Are you just going to let anybody move in, right? And the second one is, do you want to send your white kid to a truly racially integrated school? And then the question then becomes like, how integrated are we talking about?
Wow.
Right? Are we talking like 1, 2, 3 brown folks in a class of 24? We talk about 50 or 50%. That's too many. That makes white folks uncomfortable just being proximate to brown skin. And then the last thing, what Vernée was just talking, Dr. Butterfield was talking about, is like in the places that we work, like how many brown folks do we want to bring in so we can feel good about being racially diverse, but not too many brown folks, especially in management and upper leadership, right? Because then it's uncomfortable because they're going to naturally talk about race is going to make my whiteness very uncomfortable. And so when we're thinking about, making white folks uncomfortable, historically and contemporarily, white folks are very uncomfortable when it comes to the close, personal, immediate. And so when we translate to the workplace or talk about race on a larger scale, it's going to be a level of discomfort, especially when it gets closer to what they value in their white spaces.
Wow. Dr. Hudson,
Dr.
man.
Benson, Dr.
Ahead.
Benson, can you tell us a little bit about the Anti-Racism Leadership Institute, how you founded it, what drove you to that, and what did it do today?
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm a career educator. I started out as a pre-K teacher. I moved on to fourth grade, and I moved my way through public education. Both my parents are educators. My mom was a counselor for decades. My father, before he passed, was a special education teacher for a long time. And so I come from resistance. From Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yes, there are Black folks in Wisconsin.
Yes,
I get that question all the time.
All right.
There are lots of us there, right? So I come from, and I'm bred from this history of and legacy of educators. And so when I got into education, I saw the way in which I approached the classroom and approached my leadership through an anti-racist lens, through liberation. And so when I finished my practitioner career and I went back to become a superintendent of my doctoral program, I noticed that there was a whole lot of missing research around what anti-racism looks like in the education space. Mm-hmm. So all my whole research agenda is on anti-racist leadership. I got a couple of books on anti-racist leadership. Mm-hmm. And so my first book that I put out back in 2019 became very popular right post George Floyd. And so a lot of well-meaning white folks bought the book, and it's like, how can we learn more about how to do the work that you did when you were a school leader? And so that's how I founded the Anti-Racism Leadership Institute. And basically, in a nutshell, it's a university course outside of a university. The course that we teach would not be acceptable in any historically white university in the country, because the way in which we approach the work, we approach it through a liberation framework in terms of we're not just treating the problem, with a one-day speaker or a book study, or implement this particular program. We're identifying a particular oppressive practice, and we're seeking to eliminate that outcome for students of color. So we're an outcome-oriented firm where we focus in on what's your problem? Oh, representation of Black boys in special education. All right, we're gonna take care of that. Right, because it doesn't have to be. It's not a natural phenomenon. And so I have passion for the work because I truly believe, and also in practice, that we can eliminate these outcomes if we choose to do so.
Beautiful, beautiful. And see, NightWatchman, and you only thought it was Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. I know that.
No, they're also. I also saw people who play for the Green Bay Packers. So
Oh, okay. Okay, you got some. So, Dr. Hudson, please. Shannon and A. Oh, go ahead. What do you
we want to hear the same question for you. Tell us about racially conscious collaboration and what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, shout out to y'all. I was listening to you, Dr. Benson, and the work that you do, and I felt like I was looking into a mirror. I can remember being in the doctoral program, very irritated about looking at all of these organizational change studies from these white men who were not concerned with race. And so we've had to rewrite those things. I also used to be a school principal myself. So I am also originally from a place that when I say it, I don't want any laughing. There are Black people there. We deep. Omaha, Nebraska, all right? Y'all probably know Bud Crawford. You probably know the birthplace of Malcolm X. That's my first hometown. My second hometown is Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so I spent nearly 30 years of my life there, met my wonderful wife there, Spelmanite, who convinced me to stay there instead of going somewhere warmer. And I founded Racially Conscious Collaboration there. We are a small Black family owned and operated firm. That was attractive for me. I looked at one side and my sister was an executive in the corporate space, and I just told her they don't know how to treat Black women. I looked the other way. My wife is one of the best racial equity coaches I know, and I've spent my entire career centering racial equity and leadership development and organizational change. And so now you can find us across the country doing the same thing. On some days, I'm coaching leaders and executives around what we call the 6 hallmarks of effective anti-racist organizational change and leadership. Sometimes that's whole organizations, et cetera. And so really our work is anchored in healthy cross-racial dialogue. So when I heard some of the conversation earlier, I think about the question you asked about, like, are white folks afraid of this work, et cetera. From my perspective, I think we all are to a certain extent. You can't be in the same fishbowl and not get some of the water on you. And when I ask people which skin color group has been the most dominant in our society, everyone says the same thing, white, but we all in that fishbowl. And so what's happening inside these organizations and in my neighborhood when I talk to folks, etc. If you are living, breathing, and finding any success in 2026, you have internalized something about white being the norm. And so you're either fighting that off or you're unconscious of it or pretending like it's not there. So from my perspective, it's obvious that so many of the white colleagues that I work with in organizations really have struggled to have this conversation, because when I research them, what they say is a lot of times in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, it's the first time they've had a real conversation about race with any tools that, move them beyond being scared to say the wrong thing, etc., and have internalized white being elevated themselves. But also in these organizations, we have as well. So many of us have lost ourselves inside of organizations. And so I find myself in doing this work of this whole organizational change, etc., and providing space for Black and brown folks to heal while doing the work, and decentering the ways we've elevated white, and doing the very same thing in a different way for white colleagues in those spaces.
Beautiful, beautiful. And NightWatchman, I got to go in. So you see Dr. Hudson's shirt. Dr. Hudson, I want the merch. Okay, just saying.
I also like the fact that he has James Baldwin looking over his shoulder.
Wow.
so we have one core value at the company, and it's love, but it's defined by James Baldwin. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things that you don't see. So that's just what keeps me going when folks say whatever it is they say and show up the way that they do. It just reminds me that this is a calling, and I'm here to make people conscious of what they don't see, because that's the beginning. I don't know if it's a can or a won't, a won't, or can't in the conversation. But at least if I give you the foundation of being conscious about how to operate, what are the hallmarks of being effective in this work, like Dr. Benson talked about, then I could determine whether it's your will or not. But until then, most of us have not had spaces where we learn tools to have healthy, productive conversations about race. And so that's where we start.
Beautiful. You know what? Both of y'all have been mentors to my cousin, Dr. Butterfield. And so, Dr. Butterfield, I know you since you were a little girl, always questioning why. Why is this? Why is this? What was your experience like going into that particular area and then starting to express and also starting to learn what was happening in globally?
Yeah, so let's start locally, right? Thinking about where I grew up, between New York, Connecticut, and summer times in Bermuda, where my dad's family's from. But always exposed to issues of race, right? Like growing up and spending summers in Bermuda, and my grandmother saying not to stay out in the sun too long because we would get too dark, right? Hearing that level of colorism on islands, knowing that colorism exists here in the U.S. too, but on islands, it's so palpable, because it literally would be people only trying to have children with someone who was fair skinned, or raising their children and putting them in private schools and so forth, right, around less of the majority of the island, and then coming over to Connecticut and moving from, where were we, Curtis? Long Island, right?
Yes, that's right.
And moved to Connecticut so that my dad had a shorter commute to the city. But it's when it starts knocking on your door in a very, very different way, right? So fourth grade, we moved there, I was in the third grade, but made it to the fourth grade. Woohoo, I passed. And this little boy dropped a pencil, and our hands touched as I went to pick it up for him. And he yelled, "Get your black hands off me." And I remember my reaction to it when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I started to get upset, and my teacher takes me out in the hallway, asks me what happened. And as I tell her, she says, Vernée, if you're going to be that sensitive, then you need to go back to where you came from.
Wow.
For some reason, my mom picked me up that day from school. And as I was telling her this, she put the car in drive and parked again, and
I know how this story ends.
Okay.
You know how this goes. Y'all know my mom.
No, she didn't put any Vaseline in the hand, all right?
No. Right? Because y'all know my mom, right? And so, she went up to the teachers classroom and said, Vernée had relayed this incident to her, and she just wanted to get a sense of what took place. And the immediate thing from Mrs. Ryder's mouth was, oh, well, what I meant to say was.
Oh,
So my mom confirmed right at that point that had taken place. Not that she didn't believe me, but of course she wanted to hear from this woman. So she went down to the principal's office, and his reaction wasn't a shock. It was like a look of, what did she do now? Right.
Gotcha.
My mom went home and told my father, and as you know, my father as well, he wrote a letter to the school board. And Tony, you've not met my dad. Tracey has over the years, but via Zoom, right? But like my dad has a way of writing a letter or using words that you have to check to see if your legs are still there, because he's cut your legs off.
You don't want to smoke. You don't.
No,
I would use the word formidable.
Exactly. And but in this letter, he talked about his hopes and dreams for his children, moving to a town where he knew we were going to be outnumbered, and what this experience has done to his family, obviously to his daughter. They asked me to be removed from that particular classroom, and at 8 or 9, you don't process it the way you do at 40 something years of age, right? And thinking that, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? And really, again, having that conversation as to why this was such an issue. This teacher was removed at the end of the school year, but in this meeting, she said, she believed that whites stay with the whites, Jews with the Jews, and blacks with the blacks. Wow. She had never had a student of color in her classroom. And so for them, it was an issue of my being safe in this person's class and in the school as a whole, in the school system. So, I was forever defined as this young Black student who had this issue in the town and in the school system. And that could have changed the trajectory of my education, right? I could have thought everybody was going to behave like this as my instructors. Did I have my fair share thereafter? Of course, right? But I also had some instructors and professors who were completely in my corner and behind me and pushing me and encouraging me within the educational space. And so that was my taste of it as a child. And thinking about how it's come full circle to be able to still provide this work, and knowing that we're still having some of the same conversations, that like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so I know that students are still having this issue where I am here at Fairfield University and across other universities, in the country.
Excellent. And Dr. Benson, because I know the work is difficult. Allies, sometimes they're far and few between, but have you been, I guess, gratified in a number of the allies that you've been able to pick up over the years, or what?
That's a very interesting term, ally.
Oh yeah. Tread lightly with that word. Let's say somebody who maybe at least starts out with some of the same or similar beliefs, but then you say, maybe not.
Break it down, Dr. Benson. Break down.
Yeah. I need a co-conspirator. I need co-conspirators.
Gotcha.
When I break it down and talk about what co-conspirator means to me, I'm sure we've all seen the picture of the Greensboro sit-ins, with two black men at the lunch counter and a white man next to them, and the white man's getting all the business just like the black man. Food spilled on him. Folks pushing him and whatever. I picture that's what's happening there. And when I think of the word ally, I picture the allies are just the bystanders in the crowd, right? They're not the ones, partaking in the aggression against the folks at the table, but they're not also supportive in any way, right? And so I see that there are a lot of allies that'll see me at the table and be like, yeah, you're doing a great job, but I don't want any of that, right? I don't want to piece of that. I need a co-conspirator. those who are right there next to me at that lunch counter, who are in the crosshairs of their white colleagues. That's the people that I look for. And most folks come into this work and want me as their ally. And I just explained to them, I need a co-conspirator. So if we're in your organization and we're doing this work together, and the only person you talk about all the racist stuff you see in your organization to, only person you talk about is me as a consultant, you're just perpetuating the same oppression that you're arguing against, because you're not doing anything affirmative amongst your white colleagues or your colleagues of color, because it's not like just because we got brown skin that we can't perpetrate oppression, right? That's what we often like to think, right? And so in terms of allyship, I do appreciate those who come into work with the best of intentions, right? who don't know a better way, who thinks that the best thing they could do is bring in a brown face to talk at their colleagues, and then hopefully their colleagues get changed and they don't have to sort of participate in the liberation of the folks they care about most. And so I appreciate those who come as allies, and my hope is that they will then translate and transfer into being co-conspirators.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know what? I'm thinking in my head, Dr. Hudson. So certainly we do know that the Republican Party now is not the party of Lincoln. We know this already. Okay. However, my question:
they haven't been the party of Lincoln since Lincoln.
Thank you for that, Night Watchman. So Dr. Hudson, can you be a black person, right, and still think that you believe in the Republican Party, aka, let's say, Michael Steele, right, and still be, how should I say, look upon DEI as necessary in this time? Yeah, I know that's a mouthful.
No, so I guess what comes up for me is, I am generally not talking about Republican, Democrat, and here's why.
Gotcha.
Here's why. I'm generally talking about racial consciousness. For me, the best predictor of how someone is going to vote, supervise, provide feedback, be in a relationship, etc., is the extent to which they have unlearned racism in this country and are on the path to becoming racially conscious. And beyond that, the extent to which they have receipts. I need to know, what do the Dr. Butterfield say about you? In our country, the most marginalized folks are Black, are women, are Black women who are indigenous, are Black women who are immigrants, are Black African-American women, etc. And so that is the best predictor for me, because that's who continues to save this democracy, and not from a space of your politics, but actually save the soul of the country over and over and over again. And so when you have receipts that the Black and brown women, in particular Black women, Black trans women, that are in your life, say that you are a safe person, and not only that they can thrive, and that you use your power and positionality for their voices to be heard in the most powerful spaces, that is what I'm paying attention to, right? Because you got to think about it. Like, I come from Minneapolis. I spent 30 years there of my life. The very first time that I encountered racial harassment was on the same corner that George Floyd was unalive. That's the first place where I thought that neighborhood was the safest place on the planet. I lived in the Boys and Girls Club that used to be there on 30th 6th in Chicago. I spent time at that Cup Foods all of the time, and I was snatched off the corner by police and thrown onto the hood of a hot car, ripped my Bo Jackson shirt. It was Bo Jackson and Magic Johnson.
Wow.
For me, and took all, notion of safety. And so to see us back there with the murder of George Floyd, back there again in 2026, there's, to me, a range of how people might vote, but you can be the most liberal colleague that I work with and not have racial consciousness. And so when I look in that organization or look in your friend group, there's a lot of harm going on, and it falls mostly to those who are the darkest skin, who are at other intersecting identities. And that's why I mentioned Black women. So for me, I'm not as concerned with that. I'm concerned with your receipts. What do the Black women say? What do the Black women say about how you show up?
Excellent, excellently said. And you know what? Okay, all three of y'all, here's the thing. Would you say, and you can comment on this, that the relationships between, let's say whites in the South, very different than whites in the North, whereas in the South would be more genuine. Either I like you or I do not like you. I'm not hiding behind anything. Would you say that to be true? Anyone, take it.
I mean, I spent some time in Texas.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Not with Ted Cruz, but I know you were there.
No, not with Ted Cruz, for sure not. Right, and definitely not with Governor Abbott. But I think it is overt in the sense that Trevor Noah speaks about this in reference to his growing up in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's very, it's either I know I'm overtly a racist, so I know where you stand, and so there's no hiding it, right? But I also experience in the South that sort of bless your heart, I'll smile in your face, and it's not necessarily someone who is overtly saying how they feel about you, but their actions, sort of tell you, right? I don't know that it's a divide now by the Mason-Dixon line. I think that we are in a space of racism is everywhere, and we've known this, right? And people are experiencing this in the North, South, East, and West. And so this notion of have we just simply moved the needle in addressing this comes up for me more than it is a demographic or geographical location.
Gotcha. Dr. Benson, what say you?
I agree with Dr. Butterfield. I think that it's no longer defined by North and South, as if it ever was. The North likes to put their flag in the ground and say, "Oh, we abolished slavery first," right? But being first to abolish the most heinous form of oppression shouldn't be a calling card to say, "Oh, we're better." And so what I find, being from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for a very long time, Milwaukee, Wisconsin was the most segregated city in the entire U.S. I asked this question when I do a lot of my trainings, do you know what was the most segregated city in the U.S. for like 20 something years? And folks think it's somewhere in the South. Like, no, it's Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wow.
And growing up in such a segregated space, there's parts of the city that, my parents, growing up just told us, like, you just simply can't go there, right? Do not be caught there in my own city. And then the more rural you get outside of Milwaukee, further north, which is most of the state, you get the same iteration of sundown towns than you do at any place in the South. Wow. This was back in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. And so I think it's often used, especially in like really blue states such as Massachusetts, that we are more liberal than any other state. We're first in education, and that we use the language across the state around DEI. But I think this, the smile in your face and the self-anointment of allyship is often harder to address because you have to get past this firewall of accolades that these folks have in front of them, like we are one of your allies, so hence you can't address it with us, opposed to someone who sort of acknowledges that I have no experience or business in this realm, and my ignorance, I own it, and I'm more open to change. And so I find the most difficult folks, and Robbie DeAngelo talks about this, most difficult and harmful folks who are the barriers to liberation are some of the most self-anointed liberal white people in the North.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Doc, Hudson, what say you?
So I believe Dr. Butterfield, Dr. Benson have already said it. So I'm going to take a different turn on it. So I moved from Minneapolis a couple of years ago to Atlanta. And I'm more energized when I come to the work than I do when I get off the street, or fly back from wherever. And I think y'all know why. But what I'll say to you is this. So on our website, I wrote something recently, and I was thinking about Nina Simone, and then I was thinking about like Minneapolis, and the opening on the website is Minneapolis is everywhere. So it was like a letter to, my other hometown to not repeat 2020, 2026 again. And the title is the title to exactly what Dr. Benson and Dr. Butterfield said. Minneapolis is everywhere. It is everywhere. And for example, Dr. Benson, if anyone doesn't know about Milwaukee, I've only been there a bit, was doing some work there. What I can offer to you is it's the most nervous that I've ever been. During the time when I was doing work in Milwaukee, it was around a seminar that I had developed around patterns in the destruction of Black males at the time. And what I can offer to you is at that time, I believe they had the highest rate for incarceration in a zip code, I think, in the world.
Wow.
And when I looked around at all of those Black folks, to your point, Dr. Benson, I don't want to talk about your hometown. You can talk about it, but when I was there, I was nervous because I said, there's no way you can lock up this many Black folks. It's impossible. Not everybody has done something. And so while I'm there in the hotel, getting ready to do work the next day with some colleagues, we had access to the club lounge because we were putting on a conference there. And we got profiled by the hotel security because they could not believe that these Black folks were smart and shiny and planning a training. We had to be there stealing something, etc. And I said to myself, this is how it happens. There's no way you can have this much incarceration of Black folks without just randomly putting things on people, etc. So I'm not a big believer in some of those things I was taught when I lived up north, that up north somehow is different from the South. It's a distraction. Just like they made critical race theory a boogeyman and a distraction. That's just classic Black folks' wisdom, because the first tenet of it is racism is everywhere.
Absolutely. And NightWatchman, remember Simone with Mississippi? I said, Minneapolis, goddamn. Who knew?
That's what I was listening. That's what I was listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought we couldn't cuss, but
Well, I got my $50,000 ready. I'm ready. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Dr. Benson, let me tell you what, Dr. Benson, I got a lot of love when I was there. So you see what I'm trying to do. I don't want to mischaracterize your city. I got a lot of love when I was there, but I thought that was something to lift up about the plight of Black folks there.
All right. Yep. Dr. Benson, yes, we're giving you a thumbs up here, okay? For sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I don't sit on Milwaukee. I don't sit on it like, oh, that's I ride from Milwaukee. I know what it is. So I appreciate the validation that the reality of cities in the North can be just as oppressive, if not more, than anywhere else in the U.S.
Excellent. NightWatchman, what you got for us?
Well, just mulling over some of the comments from all of the panelists. We talked about allyship, and I thought about it like the discussion between the pig and the chicken, talking about the bacon and egg breakfast. When the pig says to the chicken, "For you, it's just a contribution. For me, it's a total commitment." And that's the difference between allies and co-conspirators right there. And Dr. Hudson talked a little bit about let's get away from Republicans versus Democrats, because there's problems on both sides of the aisle, and I don't appreciate the casual racism of Republicans, but I don't appreciate the performative allyship that sometimes we get. I mean, I have this image of Nancy Pelosi kneeling on the floor of the House with kente cloth, and I'm like, what is this actually doing for us? And I came up with a 0 on that. So I think all of us are frustrated by all of our politicians at this point in time. And then the discussion about DEI, it just got so ridiculous when we see the most incompetent administration in U.S. history, the people who are hired for jobs which they are totally unqualified for, while all those Black women who are overqualified are no longer employed, and you have people running total agencies and departments that have no business doing it at all. So it raises my blood pressure.
Yes,
but we have to fight. We have to keep fighting this fight. That's the thing. And I appreciate the work that the three of you have done to frame these discussions and give us kind of a roadmap. And matter of fact, We've only got 15 minutes left. I think we can solve the problem by the end of this podcast.
See, NightWatchman, you had to go there. You just said
too optimistic. Too optimistic.
Ever so slightly. So speaking of which, optimism, yes. And for a while, cuz you had really lost your optimism. As a matter of fact, you were thinking about maybe even walking away from that particular area. What has implored you to stay? Do tell.
So it's funny you said that. I just want to make a comment real quick in reference to allyship, right? And I think, we've talked about co-conspirators, and we know the people who are in it for the performance and those who are in it for some real change. But I also think that, and I know I've talked with both of you, Dr. Hudson and Dr. Benson, about this. Like, I think you can't declare yourself an ally. You just can't, right? And sometimes I'm more cautious when someone is declaring themselves as the ally, because they tend to be the silent cheerleader. And I'm so glad you brought that up in a space that really needed to be talked about, right? But they themselves didn't do it, right?
Wow.
They themselves won't bear the brunt and come to the defense of those that need to be defended. And when you are a self-declared ally, that makes me run in the opposite direction. So to your point, in terms of why or the spaces where I've been that have made me want to walk away, don't get me wrong, there are some days I still feel like that, but I'm reminded of certain things that happen as to why I have to remain in it. So I'll give you a perfect example. There's a young student here who spoke a couple of weeks ago in reference to receiving a Student Activism Award. And he was the keynote speaker at the event. And he started talking about how he wanted people to give him grace before he spoke, because he said he is dyslexic. And so you could tell that he had really rehearsed his speech, and certain words were difficult for him to sound out, and so forth, right? And so he asked for that grace up front. And he said he came to the university looking to grow. He came to the university to learn. I think he also had mentioned he was first generation. I think his parents are Haitian. And, instead of that happening, he's mired by this incident with a professor in asking this person for help. Whether it was for an assignment, those details are unclear to me, or if it was a paper, I don't know what it was, like I said. But I think he had emailed, the email went unanswered, and then went to office hours. And the accusation came that he was stalking her. Now you have to be very clear when you say you are being stalked, right? You have to be able to show and have evidence of being stalked. Right? So of course I started asking questions. Did he show up to her office every morning unannounced? Did he, email her 50 times in a day or in an hour? What constituted the stalking, right? The accusation, only to find out that this person is known for using these words when it comes to Black males, that they are known to be an issue at the university, and went on leave after this young man was brought up on disciplinary charges. And used the buzzwords of feeling unsafe and so forth. And I remember sitting there listening to this young man and thinking, like me, I can tell that story of when I was in the 4th grade verbatim. And he had this experience now that will live with him forever, right? He will always talk about those incidents, that one incident that reminds you of who you are, in the sense that you don't, yes, we hope that we have our consciousness, but like, we know he knows he's a Black man, right? We know that he was accused of stalking, and that it couldn't have been further from the truth. He is the most gentle, even-tempered gentleman I've met. And so even as he was saying this, the first thing I thought was, no way in the world, right? And so when I did my digging, of course, that was the case. This did not happen. And so now he's asking to meet with the president of the university and demanding an apology to have this taken, off of his record and so forth. And so it's those moments where it kind of keeps me in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Is this going to be another university that drops the work? Is this going to be another space where I might make someone feel a bit uncomfortable in this session and they want me out? I don't know. But for now, I stay in it because if we don't, who will?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, just hearing that. So I'm thinking, Dr. Benson, I mean, has there been any instances where it's been totally frustrating? That's one. Or two, that, you know what? I see the work. I see a good result. I'm staying in. I'm staying in for the long haul.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's all about perspective. And I wake up every day thankful that I'm a Black man in 2026. Right, in this work, because at this point in our history, we have the least to lose by doing this work. We got to remember, from 1619 to 1865, we were subject to every atrocity legally in this country under slavery. Right, and those who were anti-racist then, who were all about liberation then, they had a lot to lose, including their lives, their kids, their health. They were subject to the most brutal forms of torture at that point in time for 246 years. And then we flash forward another 100 years until the civil rights movement, and at this time it was legalized segregation. It was relegating us to substandard jobs, having us being placed in schools that didn't have enough resources. It was public lynchings. If you dare look at a white woman in a way that's sideways, even if they were spewing the most hateful speech and oppressing us in any type of way. So this is 346 years of legalized oppression in this country. And we flash forward from 1965 to today. It's only been 61 years.
Wow!
Right? We have hundreds and hundreds of years of legalized oppression in this country, and it still hasn't ended. And at the same time, to be able to do this work now without being subject to, right, not completely free, right? We still have the sort of the slave catchers, the what police. We call police and law enforcement that can still at any given time shoot me down legally. But in terms of being able to do this work now, I keep myself grounded in terms of like, this is the safest it's ever been. I never wanted to be in a time machine because it will never be safe in this country for me to go back. But I appreciate the ability to stand on the shoulders of giants who are my ancestors who've done this when they had everything to lose. And I cannot betray that legacy. And so I wake up every day thankful and grateful that I'm alive, I'm well, and I'm able to do this for the future Black people in this country.
So Dr. Benson, I mean, okay, so I understand history, right? I'm going back in time. I'm a white person. I'm learning about these particular atrocities. Now that you guys have your freedom, at least I perceive it, you guys are going to now attack me and do the same dang thing I did to you. That's my fear.
Oh yeah, there's a fear of Black Planet. That's why they don't want us in their neighborhood. They don't want us in their schools. There's always a fear of Black Planet. Carol Anderson writes about this best in her book called White Rage. White Rage will all white folks, in terms of the original sin of white supremacy, of saying our culture, our language, our ways of being, knowing, and doing aren't just better, but we have the right to annihilate you. Right, in service of our goals and our culture, because we are better. We've never solved that original sin. But it's not like it's not solvable. If we continue to do the work and not assimilate in a way that we are the second-class citizens and keep fighting the power, I don't know what it's going to look like in 20 or 30 years. But I know that my ancestors, by the work that they did, allows me to be here right now.
Beautiful.
And so I need to continue the work.
Excellent. So come on, Dr. Hudson. I'm scared of you, big Black bodies. I'm scared, man. Yo.
Well. It is very American to be scared of Black people. It's very U.S. centric, and it's also very global. And that fear didn't get there inside of you by accident. It was taught to you through television, through us being missing in your curriculum as a child, and you having to imagine who we are, and you being instructed that we are scary. But you asked the question earlier to me to sound like what's keeping you going in this work instead of pulling out of it now. So I talked about the scariness because that's something that we all share. The biggest strategy to swing the pendulum back from commitments, in quotation marks, that we've had to, racial equity, justice, and freedom is fear, generally. And so the fear is real. And so the reason why I have hope right now and I'm not pulling back is because I have tools to emotionally regulate. Okay. What I mean by that is, when I'm getting these messages at the same time that your audience and you all are, that we shouldn't talk about race, that universities, organizations are backing up from it. There's all these consequences. There's always been, and like my dear colleague and sister Cam Mason says, when we do work with therapists, you don't have to respond with your first response. So what are the emotions you're experiencing? How deep and high are those emotions? What are the things that you do? Deep belly breathing, journaling, talking to a friend, praying, taking a walk, etc., to bring your emotions into a space where you can bring forth your best decision making and your best response, right? And so when you're able to slow that down and just focus on race a bit, you notice that it operates like a pendulum swing in our country, like you all have defined here so much. And what also is true for me is when I can attend to our emotions, that's part of the tool that I designed for healthy cross-racial dialogue. Just means to care for your emotions with yourself, with others. I'm also able to see what's real in front of me. And what's real in front of me is this, is today I'm on a podcast with some beautiful Black folks with an audience. And then we're talking about this country's, oldest virus that there is no inoculation for, racism. My calling is to eliminate racism. I get to do my calling today. Monday, I have a meeting with someone new at an organization that's an executive that wants executive coaching because they want to take their organization that serves the LGBTQ community and ensure that there's racial intersectionality in that work, and they want to be coached to do it. If I believed that we all are dropping out of this work, then I would have to lie to myself that meeting is not happening this Monday. I'd also have to lie. I'd also have to lie about the county school system that wants to do an audit, and not just a DEI audit, but one that talks about race, equity, inclusion. I have that meeting Monday. I have clients that I've worked with that have stayed deeply rooted in this work for the last several years. And when they were threatened like other organizations, there was a clear difference.
Gotcha.
They had done the work to internalize racial consciousness and could see the threats and the opportunities through a lens of anti-racism. The rest of the organizations are like the rest of our society, where at best, many organizations and professionals just don't know how to hold healthy cross-racial dialogue, examine race in a healthy way. It's not part of their culture. So when their lawyer told them to stop doing all the DEI work, they responded in fear. So we need some emotional regulation. I have that. I have a calling in this work, and just the tools that I work with folks around and the people I'm talking to, I'd have to pretend that that's not there. And I'm not into pretending. I need realness in 2026.
Beautiful, beautiful. Night Watchman, you know what this is?
Lightning round.
All right, y'all, get ready now. Keep it short, succinct. The future of your work, and also I need to reach out to that Professor Butterfield. I need her. How they can reach you. Okay, so go.
Yeah. Fairfield University, the Senior Director of Diversity Initiatives. You can reach me at vbutterfield@fairfield.edu.
Excellent. Beautiful. Okay, now Dr. Benson.
You can read.
Go ahead. What you got in the future? Talk to us. Go ahead.
I have a book coming out. My next book is called Anti-Racism Phobia, being released with Harvard Education Press in October of this year. We're continuing to do work with organizations globally. And if you want to reach me, it's going to sound, I don't mean to be arrogant about it, but Google Dr. Tracey A. Benson. You can find me. I'm the first couple of Google pages. I have folks working on it. So
wow.
Easily searchable.
Love it. Love it. And of course, Dr. Hudson.
Yeah. I think the future of this work is important. I don't want to just say bright, it's important. You can reach me says it at the bottom there, the name of my organization. Just go to raciallyconsciouscollaboration.com and you can click for a complimentary consultation. You can look at the work we're doing. You can see video testimonials of real people doing this work, and you can talk to me about getting the shirt at our website or our book coming out with the same title this year in 2026, or you can talk to me about coaching, organizational change work that centers this work, etc. So thank you for having me.
Oh man, Night Watchman, yo, this is wonderful. Well, will they all be invited back to the cookout?
Yes, and you too.
But hold it, you better tell Vernée not to put any daggone raisins in the potato salad, okay?
First of all, that's insulting for you to even,
you know what? I don't
intimate
know you
that she would do that.
But I'm not gonna let you disrespect my sister that way.
Exactly.
You, but don't you ever mention raisins in the potato salad with my sister's name.
Right.
Never ever happen.
I've been acting right and professional this entire time, but you didn't go too far now.
You walked into that door, brother.
I apologize, cuz I apologize.
Let me take it home. And
look, Dr. Hudson, I knew I was going to get ragged on. Like Curtis said, he has known me my entire life.
Yes,
exactly. No reason to ever say that. Come on.
You're right. Okay. Night Watchman, you're right.
I'm getting you out of the jam right now. So you can listen to Soul Lounge Primetime on PHCR 9.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. You can always find us on Mondays, 5 p.m. on the radio, 8 o'clock live streaming on your channels. Thank you for this great panel, for really giving us some illumination on a very important topic that's to us all. And yes, they are all invited back to the cookout without reservation.
Wow. Okay.